In my research, it shows that the type of racial discrimination they came across in America actually exists in China. Yeah, the white superiority, whiteness of American identity exists also in China. Actually, in cases more prominently, more up in their face than in the United States. People can openly discriminate them by saying, well, we want a white face to be the English teacher. We don't want the Chinese face.
I remember like the blatant racism I would come across on a regular basis. Like I remember like walking into like my apartment complex, and instead of going to my building, I go to my friend's building, which was like right next door, and when I'd walk in, the guard would be like, excuse me, like stop, like who are you, fill out this form, like name, phone number, you know, why you're here, who you're visiting, how long you're going to stay, I don't know. And I remember I'd be like, oh, I have to fill it, that's so you know, formal, and I would like stand and fill it out or whatever, and we'd go upstairs, and then I remember my other friends who were, you know, from Europe or the States, or who didn't look Chinese anyway, would be like, what, you have to fill out a form? Like, we just walked in, you know, the guard didn't say anything, and I'd be like, what? Like, this is ridiculous. And then I remember one time I went to like another friend's place, and I was just really casual. I was wearing like sweatpants and a sweatshirt. It was kind of cold, and I was wearing Uggs. And I walked in, and the guard wouldn't let me in because he thought I was like a cleaning lady. And I was like, you know, just like totally appalled. Whereas, you know, if my friend was next to me, this like blonde German girl, like it would have been no problem. You know, you open the door for them, it's like, welcome, you know.
They get the message that they're not American enough. They're not authentic American. This perception of them as forever foreigner in America. But it happens in a different context.
I grew up in a part of New York that was mostly not Asian, non-Asian, let alone Chinese. I just felt this kind of, it was almost a self-imposed desire to be even more American, to be even more of a New Yorker, to be even more kind of not Asian, non-Chinese. Told my parents, you know, that I basically wanted to abandon anything short of food, short of Chinese food, that I wanted to kind of not speak Chinese anymore. I didn't want to kind of be called by my Chinese name, and you know, to just be kind of like fully Americanized. She was tough. And I mean, the reason for that is simple. You know, growing up, I think you look at your surroundings and you look at who's around you and who are your friends and who are your teachers, and if you don't see people who are like you, who are similar to you, you generally kind of adapt to them.
In America, they were more concerned about their racial identity, their ethnic identity, which is natural because they have to constantly compare about who they are as American with the mainstream culture, with the representation, and also with those face of colors expressed or represented in media. Right? So race and ethnic identity are definitely the most salient.
So I really thought of myself as being very Chinese, you know, and really understanding. So I really thought that when I came out here, I would totally be like set, like no surprises, like, you know, I've had chicken feet, I've eaten, you know, cow intestines and like all these, you know, weird things that foreigners are like freaked out by, but I love that kind of stuff. So I figured for me, like it would be smooth sailing, like no problems. Now that I'm here, I go home and I'm like, oh my God, my mom's totally different, my dad's totally different. They're super Americanized, and that's maybe not, you know, maybe all, you know, just like what we eat and maybe the language. It's kind of maybe the mentality, the way you think.
Their national identity, their American identity becomes the most salient. It really trumps their racial identity and their ethnic identity in China. By American identity, I mean two levels. One level is this national political identity, the passport identity, and the meaning associated with it.
Being American is something that people look up to a lot because, you know, you're raised in a more open-minded society. There are more opportunities at your disposal that you may have had in terms of like educationally and socially when you're growing up outside. And then there's that, you know, someone said the other day, do you know how difficult it is traveling with a Chinese passport? You know, and just something so small like that, just me taking for granted that like I can just go wherever I want and fly home whenever I want is something that Chinese people don't get. That's something that I know that my cousins and my aunts are never going to have. You know, if I have a wedding or if my brother's graduating, they can't just fly over here and come visit us.
The other is their cultural identity. Yeah, this cultural regime, social norms you hold dearly in your everyday behavior. And that is the part that really distinguishes them from Chinese. And very often, this everyday culture has a lot of clashes of values.
It was hard when I first came here because like I came here and I started working right away, and then a bunch of people at my office, they were new to China as well. Whenever I'd go out with them, I'm sort of the Chinese person. Whenever something something awkward would happen, someone would do something really rude, I felt like
You had to explain.
I had to explain. It was because they're my people, and because they look like me, like I had responsibility for it. Sometimes I feel like I'm bipolar here because when I have a bad day, it sort of it compounds. When you run into little things or things that social differences or social etiquettes. I mean, just holding the elevator door. I remember there was one time where we were walking into the elevator door and the door was closing, and the people that were standing inside didn't open the door for us. So we sort of got hit by the door, and then when we got inside, they thought that we were all foreigners, and they thought that none of us spoke Chinese. And I heard one of the ladies say, if you see the doors closing, why don't you walk faster? Which is, it's a minuscule thing, but it just shows the difference in the way people treat each other sometimes here. And it's little things like that. It's like when you're having a bad day and you run into that, it just compounds, and it just gets you really, call it a China day, a bad China day.
Chinese Americans in China have to negotiate. They have to navigate. They need to make a choice. And whether consciously or subconsciously, they're constantly weighing which system is better, which system works more, which system makes more sense, which system is more advanced.
I guess the biggest shock was realizing that I'm not Chinese at all.
What do you mean by that?
Just realizing just feeling the scope of China and just seeing the large varieties within this one ethnicity, and just seeing how different I was raised and how different I was brought up, and basically seeing how American I am, I guess.
So what does the future hold for Chinese Americans? For Kaiser Guo, who's lived in Beijing for 15 years, the removal of a singular identity has meant widened prospects and increased opportunities.
A rundown of my life would take a little bit of time. I have a lot of balls in the air. I work at Baidu, where I'm Director of International Communications, which means I do some speech writing, I do a lot of interaction with the international media, I give a lot of talks on behalf of Baidu. I have another very important avocation, which is music. I play lead guitar in a band called Chunqiu, Spring and Autumn, and I've been playing in that band since 2001. Prior to that, from 88 to 89, and then again through the early 90s, and joining again from 96 to 99, I played in a band called Tang Dynasty, which achieved arguably considerable success here in China. Finally, of course, I'm married to a delightful Beijinger, and we have two lovely children, Guinevere, who's 7 now and in 2nd grade, and Johnny, who's in kindergarten. And raising them fully bilingually, and it's a real challenge. So I wasn't one of these roots seeker types. I wasn't looking for this sort of authentic Chinese experience or to better understand where I came from or anything like that. I was just, I had really more immediate personal, you might even say, selfish reasons. I honestly just thought this is an opportunity for me. This is something in which I have a leg up, having the rudiments of the language already under my belt, and having a familiarity and a comfort with the country. I thought I may be able to make something of myself here. We do get made fun of for our funny accents and for this sort of thing, but the advantages that it affords you far outweigh any disadvantages that it confers on you. There's no question to me that it was an advantageous thing to be Chinese American. I think we all have a very important role to play, as long as we don't get caught up in, I think what we need to do is embrace the idea of biculturalism and not, I've seen so many people sort of tear themselves apart, in this conflict of loyalties. They don't know where the locus of identity actually is. Don't worry about that. That's really, for most people, I understand that's an issue, but if you can get past that and understand there is another category. You can be bicultural. You can be somebody who strives to be bicultural. I'm not fully there yet, but at least I know that that's the direction I want to go. And I realize that I'm getting there because of things like, if I see a group of American tourists in, say, Florence or Siena in Italy, I feel the same kind of embarrassment that I feel when I see a group of, say, Chinese tourists in such a place. I feel like when I'm watching American sports teams play against Chinese sports teams, I'm rooting for both sides all the time. I don't have, there you go, that's biculturalism. And also, when I feel like equally attacked by both sides for the positions that I stake out. So it's not always a comfortable place to be, but I think it's at the end, it's in the final analysis, it's very advantageous to be there, whether it's in business or in politics, certainly in academia, in science. There's nothing where China and the United States are not two major actors, and so there's always a role to be played by people who can bridge those cultures.
Never in the long history of Chinese Americans has it been so advantageous to be both Chinese and American. With the two countries' futures growing increasingly close, no doubt the role of Chinese Americans will continue to evolve. Thank you for watching.